Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Lunar Chris, and it's been a long while since I last played Athena Crisis, and what better to celebrate the upcoming full release of the game this September than to do a full-on demonstration of all of the special units in the game. And as you can see, I've got pretty much every single one of these here, 4 of which are actually already unlocked for you through the campaign and the prequel campaign, while the rest of them are unfortunately inaccessible. But whether they will be accessible for the full release is currently up in the air. But, as you probably imagine by now, these are not ordinary units whatsoever. They are all attributed to certain skills that you can equip for the player to utilize in your own custom campaign, and just as I mentioned, there are at least 4 skills that you can unlock, which will allow you to place that unit in the editor itself. And trust me when I say, this is quite a hefty video to go through. So without further ado, let's go! First up, we've got the Brute, with a defense of 52, 4 movement range, 60 supplies, 1 vision in Fog of War, and a build cost of 600. The Brute is a huge slow-moving unit with a powerful shotgun. Its high defense and attack power make it a force to be reckoned with anywhere on the battlefield. If you see a Brute, you better have a plan to deal with it. Has an ammo count of 6, can deal devastating blows on most infantry, jetpack troopers, even low-altitude aircraft, does fairly marginal damage against vehicles like tanks and artillery and whatnot. Its special abilities are Capture, and its movement costs are double speed in trenches, easy movement around plains, forests, roads, and whatnot, strenuous movement on mountains, rivers, railroads, and is unable to access all water tiles. So then, to demonstrate its power against a APU, for example, yeah, probably does about equal damage as its opponent. But these guys would not at all be a bad idea to continuously spawn if you want to make an entire wall to defend smaller units or VIPs or whatnot. Have an objective where you need to defend a flagged unit or whatever. And as for the skill attributed to this unit, it not only allows you to spawn brutes from the barracks in your HQ, but activating this power, which costs 5 charges, will grant you 50% greater attack for all soldier units, which does also pertain to the Brute as well. Up next, the Super APU, with a defense of 31, 6 movement range, 60 supplies, 4 vision in Fog of War, and a build cost of $650. The Super APU, the original version of the APU, is equipped with a powerful minigun and has higher defense compared to the regular APU. It can tear through enemy units with ease and requires a concerted effort to be taken down. Its main weapon, the Super Minigun, has an ammo count of 10 and can pretty much insta-kill just about anything. All infantry, rocket troopers, jeeps, rocket trucks. It even destroys buildings in a heartbeat, which is pretty cool, honestly. It's very helpful if you want to decrease the ability... Very helpful if you want to, prevent the enemy from getting any more funds to spawn more powerful units. But it's also got you covered for low-altitude aircraft, patrol boats and amphibious tanks, as well as some seacraft and railroad units. Its movement speed is more or less the same as the Brute, but its only strenuous movement is in rivers, exhausting movement in mountains, and like the Brute, is unable to access water. Everywhere else, though, perfectly accessible and easy to get around. And to demonstrate to you the unspeakable power of this machine, yep, the Super APU, even against one of the toughest units on the field, is certainly quite powerful. And in a factory with the skill equipped, you are able to spawn these units as well. Actually, speaking of which, Super APU skill not only allows you to build Super APUs for heavy soldier units, but it will also grant you 300% attack for all heavy soldier units at the cost of 3 charges. So yeah, so far so good. That's 2 special units, but trust me, that's nothing compared to everything else we're about to see. Here we have the Commander, with 21 defense, 2 movement range, 30 supplies, 3 vision in Fog of War, and a build cost of 225. Armies are composed of master strategists and troops on the ground executing orders. Then there's the commander unit, who can neither strategize nor execute effectively. They excel in scheduling unnecessary meetings and perpetuating confusion under the guise of alignment. Yeah, I see what you did there, dude. Equipped only with a pistol, one has to wonder what exactly is their purpose. Its main weapon has an ammo count of 5, and is able to take on infantry, well, most infantry, pretty well actually. Even jetpack troopers aren't safe. Low altitude aircraft does fairly decent damage against. Everything else, though, not entirely much, so it's not recommended to take on a tank or whatever, unless you don't have any other choice. Or if you activate the skill attributed to this unit, which I'll get to momentarily. Speaking of special abilities, though, it's able to capture buildings and also gives a morale boost, assuming you use its command power. But to demonstrate to you the unbridled power of the commander, even against the strongest unit, yep, look at that. That is pretty impressive. And, just like with the other units I've shown, Commanding Force allows you to spawn the commander unit from a barracks, and using 4 charges grants you 100% attack for all leader units. So yeah, couple this with maximum sniper, and you're kind of gonna be a force to be reckoned with. And yes, just like I said, spawn them in just like the brute from the barracks. Our next runner-up, the cannon. I do believe this is also unlockable in the prequel campaign, but it sports a defense of 42, 1 movement range, 40 supplies, 1 vision in fog of war, has an attack range of 2 to 6 tiles, and costs $450 to build. A prototype unit with a powerful cannon, but almost no mobility. Only a limited number of these units were produced before the project was scrapped. Its main weapon, the cannon, has an ammo count of 7, and managed to deal even the most devastating blows against patrol boats, mammoths, infantry, rocket units aren't safe, anti-air, tanks. It's also able to take on low-altitude aircraft, which, I'm not gonna lie, I actually think that's a little bit redundant since we already have an anti-air unit, but I suppose it's supposed to be a bit of an alternative to anti-air units, assuming that you don't have the money for those. But yes, it's perfectly capable of taking out low-altitude aircraft, and can deal some pretty hefty damage against some seacraft. And as you probably imagine, like the sniper, its abilities are to fold and unfold, the folding position in which allows you to more or less aim less attack when positioned. As for movement costs, is able to move around in pretty much almost all terrain, including railroads and campsites, has strenuous movement in forests and railroad bridges, and is unable to access mountains, trenches, rivers, and the rest of water. Now then, to demonstrate its power, oh, and just like I mentioned before, yep, you're able to spawn these directly from a factory just like the Super APU. This big boy is none other than the Super Tank, sporting a defense of 73, a movement of 3, 20 supplies, 1 vision in fog of war, and a build cost of 900 units, the second most expensive unit next to the battleship. The Super Tank is among the most powerful units with extremely high firepower and defense. Unfortunately, due to the complexity of their design, nobody has figured out how to build new super tanks. They can only be acquired by restoring them on the battlefield. Its main gun has an ammo count of 10 and is able to basically insta-kill seacraft, jeeps, Humvees, rocket units, is super capable of destroying railroad units. Not very effective against most infantry units, but it can get the job done if you're in a bit of a pinch. And it can also attack low-altitude aircraft for some reason. And yes, as you probably imagine, it's not entirely preferable to use this thing against seacraft, even if it can do quite a bit of damage. It's also another one of the units besides the Super APU that can actually destroy buildings, so that's also pretty helpful. And as for its movement, it's more or less the same as the cannon, except it has some strenuous movement on railroads. And just like with the cannon unit, with the cannon skill, you need to have the skill Super Tank in order to build these things. And now, to show off to demonstrate its power. Yup. There you have it, folks. It's literally a heavy tank on steroids. And to show you that you could spawn this thing directly from a factory, there you go. And here we have this strange little anomaly, the Acid Bomber, with a defense of 52, 4 movement range, 20 supplies, 1 vision and fog of war, and a build cost of 750. Acid bombers excel in aerial assaults, deploying corrosive bombs that inflict poison damage over time. Their primary weapon, the corrosive bomb, can devastate ground and naval units alike. Equipped with corrosive air-to-air missiles, they can also engage enemy aircraft effectively. However, their chemical payloads are low, which means they have limited ammunition, making resupply crucial for sustained operations. The corrosive bomb has an ammo count of 4, and unfortunately, it doesn't really deal that much damage. As for the corrosive air missiles, contains a ammo count of 3 and can actually deal pretty decent damage against low-altitude aircraft and jetpack troopers, not so much against bombers and other aircraft. So though it may have a pretty low damage output, all things considered, it does have one ability. Well, I pretty much already told you this, so let's just cut to the chase. Yep. The heavy tank has been poisoned. This is the only aircraft that is attributed to a skill called Acid Rain, which functions just like the loose cannon and super tank skills. And here we have the big motherfucker of all Rocketeers, the Bazooka Bear. This, alongside the Brute, the Commander, and the loose cannon, they're all unlockable in the main campaign and the prequel campaign respectively. But this guy boasts a defense of 5 defense, 3 movement range, 100 supplies, meaning you can get just about anywhere. It has a vision of 2 in Fog of War, an attack range of 1 to 2 tiles, and a build cost of 800 units. As an all-rounder, the Bazooka Bear can attack every other unit. Its low mobility is compensated by a high long-range attack power. Many have asked, why is it a bear with a bazooka? You'll have to ask the squad leader that question. Of course, as you already imagine, it's a Bazooka Bear, which carries at least 5 ammo total, and is super devastating to just about every land unit out there. Can also deal damage to aircraft as well, fairly decent damage against an amphibious tank. Probably not preferable to use against seacraft, but it definitely does deal quite some damage as well, especially against railroad units. Let's demonstrate the power of this bad boy, shall we? Kaboom! Yep, super effective, and if you happen to have aggressive stance equipped as well, you can practically just take out an entire wave of enemies, no sweat. Though, do be aware, these are actually fairly expensive, especially if you need to buy them at the bar, so watch out for that. Although, speaking of the bar, this, alongside the dinosaur and the octopus, are one of the few units that you can spawn directly from the bar and the bar only. So that's a bit of a cool thing, especially if you're in need for more funding and whatnot. Super helpful to have at least multiple bars. And of course, as for the skill attributed to this, not only does it allow you to spawn the Bazooka Bear from the bar itself, but charging this with a cost of 6 charges grants you at least 1 to 3 range, as well as 50% attack power. Oh, and I also did forget to mention, it also allows you to spawn multiple Bazooka Bears at a captured bar. Moving on to the Zombie, with a defense of 0, 3 movement range, 20 supplies, 1 vision, and 250 units to build, converting them to the Zombie faction. A Zombie faction? Yes, that's right. They are a formidable faction, and they are coming for us all. That's a pretty funny description. It has its main weapon, the Zombie Bite, though I guess maybe for balancing purposes, it only has 5 ammo total. But, as you probably imagine, it can deal devastating blows to practically all infantry types. Not entirely effective against other types of units, including low-altitude aircraft and jetpack troopers and whatnot, but being a powerhouse is not the point of this unit. Of course, though, its special abilities are to capture, create buildings, create rail tracks, rescue other neutral units, and convert other units upon attacking them. Definitely an annoying unit for sure, but also one of my favorites for this reason alone. Yep, there you have it. That unit is now a part of your faction, and they can do absolutely nothing about it. As for the skill itself, it allows you to spawn zombie units at a barracks and an HQ at the expense of the Pioneer and Infantry. Oh, and they also boast minus 50% defense, so watch out for that. Alright, we're at the home stretch, ladies and gentlemen. There's only a few more units left. Here we have the Octopus, with 5 defense, 5 movement range, 200 supplies, making it the most mobile unit out there, a 2 vision and fog of war, and a build cost of 600 units. Octopus units are formidable naval force, known for their tentacle whips that deal significant damage to ship and ground units. Wait, isn't anyone curious why octopi are a part of the fleet? They just exist? And just like it mentioned, it has a tentacle whip, which has an ammo count of 10. Can deal devastating blows towards practically all infantry, as well as frigates, cruisers and whatnot. Landers especially aren't safe. It can also deal pretty hefty damage against other units as well, so do be aware of that. And yes, it can, strangely enough, attack low-altitude aircraft as well. And seeing as this is a naval unit, it can pretty much run around all kinds of water with strenuous movement in ruins and seaweed and inaccessible pretty much everywhere else. Let's get this show on the road and dismantle this thing. Boop! And just for good measure, yep, attacks low altitude aircraft just like I said. You can only spawn this little guy at a bar, but only if it's right near a body of water. And of course, as for the command power itself, it not only allows you to spawn the Octopus from the bar, it also reduces the health of opposing units by 20 health points, assuming that you use it at the cost of 5 charges. But how about something a little bit different? The Alien. 10 defense, 4 movement range, 20 supplies, 1 vision and fog of war, and a build cost of 450 units. Alien units aren't really that special. They're just like any other soldier, except they come from another dimension, rumored to possess advanced technology and abilities, and known to travel in spaceships, but other than that, they're just like any other soldier. Really. I wouldn't necessarily say that's entirely true, because believe it or not, there is something that about this unit that makes it a little bit different from the other special units. For one, it is pretty effective against all infantry units, though not nearly as effective. And it's obviously pretty weak towards every other unit imaginable, but being a combat unit isn't necessarily the point of this unit, as its special abilities are to rescue neutral units as well as sabotage, just like the Saboteur, and attacking other units poisons the opponent as well. Let's demonstrate the unbridled power of the Alien. Yep. Kinda just like the Acid Bomber, but on land. And just like with the Brute Commander and the Zombie, these guys can only be spawned at a barracks or HQ. Not only does this allow you to spawn aliens for 450 units, they'll also spawn alien units at every occupied barracks in HQ, which costs 3 charges. So it's more or less just like the Bazooka Bear, except you're working with a less powerful unit. And finally, we have the last 2 units attributed to skills. Here, we've got the Dinosaur, with a defense of 26, 3 movement range, 100 supplies, 3 vision and fog of war, and a build cost of 600. Basically, more or less an alternative to the Bazooka Bear, but I'll explain that in just a moment. A dinosaur in this day and age? How did it get here? Do you think it hatched from an Easter egg? Thankfully, it's one of the few units that actually has unlimited ammo for its main attack, the Bite, which pretty much insta-kills everything it touches, as you can see. Munch. Yep. This thing fucks. 100%. As for the skill itself, just like with Loose Cannon, Super Tank, and Acid Rain, Dino Rampage just allows you to spawn a dinosaur at a bar. And finally, but certainly not least, the AIU. Boasting a defense of 42, 5 movement range, 60 supplies, 4 vision and fog of war, making it pretty effective for a scout unit, and a build cost of 300 units. The AIU, or Artificial Intelligence Unit, is a highly advanced robot, possibly sent from another universe to wreak havoc on the battlefield. It boasts extremely strong defense and is equipped with a powerful minigun. As its main weapon, it carries 10 ammo total, can deal devastating damage towards other AIUs as well as other infantry, rocket and artillery, also can deal pretty devastating blows to low-altitude aircraft, patrol boats, amphibious tanks, normal tanks, heavy tanks. Excuse me. It can even instantly destroy buildings, which is pretty helpful. and is fairly effective against railroad and seacraft, with its special abilities, of course, being capturing buildings, has double speed for trenches, easy movement around construction sites, railroads and whatnot, strenuous movement on rivers, exhausting on 3, and is unable to access water. Allow me to demonstrate the power of the AIU against probably one of the stronger units, the Brute. Yep. Like the dinosaur, this thing fucks. And just like some of the other skills, the AIU units, you're able to simply build these AIU units at the expense of infantry units. So, probably might make a pretty decent alternative to an infantry unit, assuming that you want something a little bit stronger. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is pretty much all of the special units attributed to the various skills that you can equip for players playing your very own custom campaign. But there are still quite a few units that I do actually want to go over. Some of which you actually can't even access in the game as it stands. So, just a bit of a minor spoiler for those who haven't played the main campaign or even the prequel campaign. Well, most of these units pertain to the main campaign itself, but let's jump on over to those special units, shall we? Alright, so in this particular mission, there are 4 different units that you see which, up until this point, have not at all been seen or are even usable in the main campaign itself. But to go over every single one of them, we've got, first up, the truck with a defense of 40, a movement range, which is very helpful, especially more so than the Jeep, with supplies of 100 as well as 2 vision in Fog of War. Nothing is known about this unit as it stands, other than the fact that it's a transport unit, but it is also able to supply other units as well, and as a transport unit, it is able to transport different types of infantry or air infantry. And for its movement costs, has easy movement around roads, bridges, construction sites, breaches, and railroads and whatnot. It has strenuous movement on forests and railroad bridges, and as you imagine, is unable to access mountains, trenches, and rivers and whatnot. Next up, the Humvee Avenger, with a defense of 30, 6 movement range, 40 supplies, and 3 vision in Fog of War. It's got unlimited rockets, meaning that it will practically do just as much damage to anything as it wants. Can deal devastating blows to amphibious tanks and patrol boats. Pretty effective against infantry and APUs and other light vehicles. Fairly moderate damage against rockets and artillery, and so on and so forth. Movement range or movement costs, more or less the same thing as the as the truck. Unlike the other unit, though, I do see this one being attributed to his skill, so that probably might be a little interesting to see, but we'll have to wait and see for sure. For the next Humvee, we've got the Artillery Humvee, with a defense of 30, 6 movement range, 40 supplies, 3 vision, and 2 to 3 attack range. Has a supply of 10 ammo, can deal devastating blows to, well, it's more or less the same damage values as the Humvee Avenger, except it can attack from a distance. And just like with the Humvee Avenger, I have a feeling that this will be attributed to a skill that will be unlockable later down the lines. And of course, last but not least, the Recon Drone with a defense of 15, 7 movement range, 60 supplies, and 5 vision, making it very effective as a scout unit. Its main weapon, the machine gun, obviously being able to deal some damage to most infantry, not so effective against other vehicles and jetpack troopers. But, of course, combat isn't the entire point of this unit, as it's able to get around pretty easily and scat out the entire area, so if you're in need to find out where your target is, this will give you quite a lot of clearance in Fog of War. So yeah, like I said, pretty cool units that you unfortunately don't get to use, which is a bit of a shame really, because these actually do look like pretty cool units, and I feel they could actually open up the door for pretty interesting scenarios. But whether they'll all be attributed to skills that will be available later down the lines, or if they'll be available for you to use in the editor off the get-go, is currently up for debate at this point. But we'll have to wait and see when the full release comes out. But I'm not done just quite yet, guys, because there are at least 3 more units that are currently inaccessible through the game itself. Well, at least through the campaign in the editor anyway. So let's jump on over to those last few units. Alright, first special unit that we've got right here in one of the campaign missions, the Dragon! An infantry/air infantry unit with a defense of 25, 4 movement range, 50 supplies, and 3 vision and fog of war. Dragons are kind of like a multiversal flamethrower unit if you think about it, except they can also fly, are huge, and people tend to freeze when they see a dragon. So not really like a flamethrower unit at all, but they do breathe fire. So its main weapon, the flamethrower, has 6 ammo and can practically insta-kill all infantry units as well as some low-altitude aircraft and jetpack troopers, but it's also pretty effective against other units like jeeps, rockets, artillery, amphibious tanks, and other boats. It can also deal pretty devastating damage to barricades. And as an air infantry unit, it is able to move around pretty easily on almost all terrain except for mountains, where it's perfectly strenuous, and is unable to access deep waters. Yup. It's almost kind of like the dinosaur, except it can fly and breathe fire. And of course, we have at least 2 special units in a few of these missions as well, one of which is actually very special. First of all, here are the other 2 units that are currently inaccessible. First of all, we have a normal-ass bear. Yeah, this thing ain't Bazoo, it's just a bear. Boasts a defense of 26, has 2 movement range, 100 supplies, and a vision of 2 in fog of war. This is a bear, and bears tend to be huge. Usually found in forests and mountains, they are hunted for their fur and meat. But this bear is different. It's a unit in a game, so don't hunt it, just fight it. And as you probably imagine, it's not only got infinite ammo for its main weapon, or attack, the bite, it can also insta-kill pretty much all infantry units and deal pretty devastating blows to just about every other vehicle, maybe even seacraft as well, particularly at patrol boats and amphibious tanks. As for movements, double speed in trenches, easy movement in forests, roads, and construction sites and whatnot, strenuous movement on mountains, rivers, and railroads, and is unable to access all kinds of water. The Ogre has a defense of 0, 4 movement range, 20 supplies, and 1 vision and fog of war. Ogres are from a different world. They are huge, slow, and powerful. They are known to wield clubs and are capable of dealing massive damage to ground units. Has unlimited supplies for their main attack, the club, and is able to insta-kill all infantry and deal devastating blows to even light vehicles, as well as patrol boats and amphibious tanks. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That does it for all of the special units. I'll admit, this was actually kind of a hefty video, going through all these special units and whatnot. But maybe we'll actually get some more special units and special skills for when the full release of the game comes out. Really hope you guys enjoyed this. Also, really do like some of the new scenery decorations and whatnot. Cute little graveyard here. And we've also got a foxhole. Very nice. But with that said and done, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all for joining along with me on this little trek of ours. And with that, I bid you all adieu, farewell, have yourselves a lovely day, and until next time, this is Lunar signing out. See you later, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for watching.